Hello, my name is Patrick Lutz, and I'm president of the Dodge County Historical Society, and we're happy you're going to take a visit of our wonderful building. The building you see behind us was actually built in the 1890s as a Williams Free Library, and it served the community all the way up until 1985. When it was built in the 1890s, it was considered one of the largest and most wonderful buildings in south central Wisconsin. So we're happy that it's our home with the Dodge County Historical Society.
And I'm Sampson, Curator of Museum of the Dodge County Historic Society, and I'd also like to welcome you to our wonderful building. And if you can come down and visit us, we're open Wednesdays through Saturdays from 1 to 4 p.m. or by special appointment with me at any time. And if you come down to the Dodge County Historic Society, you'll see 3 wonderful floors of exhibit space that document the history of not only the city of Beaver Dam, but all of Dodge County as well. So come on down and check us out.
Well, welcome inside to the Dodge County Historical Society. So this is our foyer area, and this is what you would see if you entered the building for the first time. We really have to give thanks to Mr. Williams, and here's a picture here and our dedication plaque. Dedication July 15th, 1891. Mr. Williams was a local philanthropist, and he donated $20,000 to build the building. Now, it doesn't seem like very much money, but it was a lot of money back at that time. We also many times forget, and we really have to thank them, and that's Mr. Drown, right over here. He donated $10,000 for the interior finishing of the building. So if we wouldn't have had both of those people, we wouldn't have the library and now the Historical Society that we see today.
Okay, so here we are back still inside the front foyer of the Dodge County Historic Society. This area right here, as Patrick mentioned earlier, is the first area that you see when you come into the museum. And one of the things that we wanted to do out here was to highlight the earliest Euro-American settlers that came into Dodge County and into Beaver Dam, the men and women who made Beaver Dam essentially what it is today. People like Thomas Mackey and his wife, and the Brower family, and many of these other people that you see out here. Some of the earliest settlers and people that helped to found the city and to essentially get it started in 1841. A lot of these folks were settlers that actually came down from the Fox Lake area initially, after initially settling the Fox Lake area, walking down on foot and seeing that Beaver Dam had an abundance of resources in this area that would make this an ideal, suitable place for having another settlement. And by the spring of 1841, there were a handful of people here that are highlighted in some of these exhibits here that scratched out Beaver Dam literally from the wilderness, as we say back in the day. And so a lot of these artifacts that you see here are some of the very first donations that ever came into the Historical Society back starting in 1938 when we were founded. And from there, our collection has grown to several thousand artifacts that we house right here in the building.
We do literally have thousands of artifacts. In fact, we have so many that we can't have them all on display. So many times we rotate things. So whenever you come in, you're going to see something different. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is our sort of like restoration or reimagining of the museum. Most of the time you don't think anything positive about COVID. We all experience that. But we actually closed for an entire year. And during that time we were able to redo the museum. And we started with the ceilings in our museum that had been damaged because of some water leakage because of the roof. And after we had moved everything out of this area, we thought, why should we put it back exactly the same way? And we decided that let's think about a better way of displaying the artifacts, and that's what we did. So the Beaver Dam Historical Society, Dodge County Historical Society, was founded in 1838, and it was housed in the second story of a downtown building, and eventually moved to the train station that's right next door, just south of this building. And they moved into that building and were there until we moved into this building in 1984-85. During that year was the transition year. So we're glad to be here, and we have a fantastic structure like that we like to show off. I want to mention just a couple artifacts of about, or show what was really on this floor. And one of the major things is that everybody likes to look at, and we have people from all over the United States that come to see this particular car. Number one, it was the very first car in Beaver Dam, and 1902 Rambler. So there are Rambler clubs, Rambler organizations that they'll come in and they will check out this car. They'll crawl around underneath it and check it all out and take all kinds of pictures because they're thrilled to see a car of this vintage and also in this condition. And one of the neat things about it is that this car traveled a lot. In fact, Mrs. Rowell, it was owned by the Rowell family, and they ended up traveling from Beaver Dam to Milwaukee. And so two ladies actually rode in this car all the way to Milwaukee and back. It took them quite a few days to make the journey, and they broke down at different times because the roads were not very good. They were better for horses and wagons than they were for automobiles. And sometimes area farmers would help them and push them out of the mud and help them get back on the road again. And there must have been quite the sight to see these two ladies traveling down the road and traveling pretty slow, probably even slower than the horses at that time. This is our transportation area. So here we have a number of things. We have a winter sleigh, and that was donated, and that sleigh originally was at Springbrook, and Springbrook was owned at one time by the Rogers family, who also owned Monarch Range, and we have a whole display in our basement dealing with Monarch Range. We also have this wonderful device right here, and this is called a penny farthing, and that's the name of the bicycle. And it was basically not a very comfortable bicycle when we think about bicycles of today, but it was one of the early bicycles that was available for purchase. You basically ran alongside and put your foot up on this little piece of metal sticking out and then swung your leg over and jumped up on it. Now, this particular bicycle belonged to a family who was quite prosperous in Beaver Dam, and they ended up buying this for their son. And we have a kind of an interesting picture here of a number of boys who terrorized the community. And what I mean by that is that they would ride their bicycles all over town and kind of show off that these boys were and driving around the community at the time. And so we consider them Beaver Dam's first cycle gang.
So here we are on the first floor of the Dodge County Historical Society, and we are under the iconic arch of the museum that a lot of people are familiar with that when they come into the building here. But underneath the arch here and back this way is the area that we call the under balcony, and this is an area that we have several different types of exhibits in, mostly highlighting several famous people from Beaver Dam that many people are familiar with, but also some other areas of historical significance of things that happened in Dodge County, like the Dodge County Fair and the old Ringling Brothers Circus that used to come into town over the years, and our ever popular brewery exhibit, which is right over here. But one of the other highlights underneath the balcony is our mammoth display. And this is called the Persia Mammoth, and this was donated to us about 8 years ago by Steve Persia and his family. And this was found in Dodge County, and it is the partial remains of a extinct juvenile mammoth that was found just north of Hustisford on the northeast side of the Lake Sinisippi, over by Hustisford. And this is a really one of the few juvenile mammoth found anywhere in the United States. So it's a pretty important archaeological exhibit. And we were fortunate to acquire this from the family for display after Mr. Persha's death back about 8 years ago. Steve Persha was a farmer from Mayville who literally was 98 years old when he passed away, and collected thousands of Native American artifacts around the county, including these mammoth bones. And so we're very fortunate to have these. They're some of the few mammoth bones that are exhibited in the state of Wisconsin, and a few of only, to my knowledge, this is the only juvenile mammoth that's ever been found in the state of Wisconsin. So it's a hugely important exhibit for us here.
Another area that we're really proud to display is information about Swan Park. And Swan Park is an iconic park for so many people because it was Beaver Dam's very first park. It was owned first, the property owned first by Dr. Swan, who came to Beaver Dam as a doctor and turned into more of an entrepreneur after he found a spring at this property, which became Swan Park. And that spring ended up being part of a health spa that he founded. And so that would have been in the early 1880s. And the health spa actually helped Beaver Dam grow because people from all over the United States came to Beaver Dam to actually take the waters. So a mineral spring was found on the southeast corner of the park, and after a number of years they created a full park but also the health spa, and it had a picket fence all the way around it, and also a hotel, and we've got a picture of that here, right here. And the hotel was on the western side of what we know today as Swan City Park, and that hotel was where people would stay when they would travel to Beaver Dam by train, and sometimes they would stay for a whole week, but they came to take the waters. So it was a wonderful pure spring that they found that it could be bottled and actually sold. So they had it tested, but what really in reality was good clean water, and people came from all over the United States to spend time, breathe the wonderful fresh clean air of Beaver Dam compared to what they were experiencing in large cities like Chicago and St. Louis, and so, but the park only lasted, this health spa only lasted from 1880 to the early 1890s. So it was only about 13 years, and partly because it fell out of favor. Health spas like this were very popular all the way across the United States, and there also was another one in Wisconsin in Waukesha. So this is our exhibit dedicated to Swan Park. So you'll have to stop in and check it out, but also visit Swan Park. We have created a whole history walk there with plaques that commemorate all the wonderful things that were on the park site.
Okay, so here we are underneath the balcony of the Dodge County Historical Society again, and we're going to highlight some of the important people and things of the past of Beaver Dam in the back here. One of the really interesting things about Beaver Dam was a lot of people don't realize that the actual ice fishing tip-up was actually invented in Beaver Dam. It was first invented by a guy named Albert Kahalski and George Beers and his other buddy Fred Crinian, and they had this prototype here that they were using to ice fish with, and then eventually they started to manufacture the famous Beaver Dam tip-ups here, and these are used all around the world for ice fishing to this day, especially out on Beaver Dam Lake here in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. And as you work your way underneath the balcony this way, we have a series of famous people that are from Beaver Dam, some of them a little bit well known than others, but back around the turn of the last century there is a famous pitcher, Major League Baseball pitcher, Emerson Hawley, or better known as Pinks Hawley, and he was a pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates and the New York Yankees back in the day. And he had a very interesting long career, and was a pretty dominant pitcher for his era. Another person of sports fame is Maddie Horn, or Madeline Horn, of Beaver Dam. She was an indoor and outdoor national champion speed skater who mostly raced in the 1920s and 30s, and she ended her career in the late 1930s with the outbreak of World War II, unfortunately. She was actually on a ship going to the Olympics in Germany when Hitler came to power, and the United States pulled out of the Olympics, and she actually came home and didn't get a chance to compete for a gold medal in the Olympics in the late 1930s. Another person of interest that a lot of people don't know about is Raymond Gallum here. Gallum was a very famous science fiction writer for his day, mostly in the 1950s and 60s, and he wrote several important early works of science fiction, and he even influenced people like George Lucas of Star Wars fame today. And so Ray Gallum was born and raised in Beaver Dam, and as you can see, he wrote many popular science fiction novels, and especially in the 1960s. And then in the theater area here, we have a few famous people. Eric Kalkhurst, who in the 1930s and 40s was a very famous theater actor in New York City, and starred in a few movies later on in his career. And then also we have Fred MacMurray. Many people know who Fred MacMurray is, a very famous actor who grew up a significant part of his youth in Beaver Dam. And he was in dozens of Hollywood movies. The one that I always liked was the Caine Mutiny. That's the one that I always remember him from. And I'm actually old enough to remember when Fred MacMurray was on TV with My Three Sons as well. So Fred MacMurray, probably Beaver Dam's most famous patron son. And Fred MacMurray used to come back to Beaver Dam even when he was significantly famous. He actually was one of the people who were the special guest in the 1941 Centennial Parade of the city of Beaver Dam. And this is a photo of him riding in the car with his wife, June Havner, back in that day in July of 1941 for the Centennial of Beaver Dam.
All right, the next thing I want to talk about is the Dodge County Fair. The Dodge County Fair became one of the most popular county fairs in the whole United States. In the early 1900s, literally thousands of people came to this fair. In fact, in one of the early years, there's about 60,000 people came to this fair, which is just unbelievable because they had to come on the train, but they actually walked, some of them from area communities, on horse carts. So you figure in the early 1900s, not very many people had cars, but they put special trains on from Milwaukee and Chicago, and they brought all kinds of people. And they loved the fair because it provided all kinds of entertainment. One of the more interesting things was they had the balloon jump, where they had a hot air balloon go up and a person jumped out of the basket on the balloon with a parachute. And that was really something interesting for people to see. First of all, a hot air balloon, but the other thing is watching the person jump, and luckily they landed on the ground safely, and we actually have that parachute right here in this building. So we have a lot of interesting artifacts. But the fair itself was great because they had horse racing, and that was very popular. People were actually betting on the races, and it was a big deal because there were many area farms where they raised horses, and they brought those to the fair, and people had their favorites and brought horses from all over this part of Wisconsin for the horse races. So that was really a big deal. So there was a half-mile clay oval that they created for the horse racing. Now many people wonder, well, where was that? Well, it was actually located where the Wayland Fieldhouse is today. That was the original Dodge County Fairgrounds. So the Dodge County Fair started in Juneau, but then it was moved to Beaver Dam, and it was there, and it has been in the Beaver Dam area ever since. In the early 1960s, unfortunately, some boys burned down the original grandstand. It was huge. It was a huge fire in Beaver Dam, and at that time starting to fall into disrepair. And what happened then is they said, you know, it's right in the city, maybe we should move it out of town, and now it's at its current location. But here's an interesting story about it. The fair was sponsored by all kinds of area businesses, area manufacturing. Beaver Dam has been known for years and years as a metals manufacturing town. And what happened is that as they grew, they needed more people. So they actually provided prizes, the area manufacturers prizes, and provided money for all kinds of special acts to come to Beaver Dam. And they did it because they were hoping to lure people to Beaver Dam. So they visited, they went to the fair, they would be a great place to live, and that's what happened. People would come to Beaver Dam and check out the city, and then they'd say, you know, this is a nice place to live. And because they needed employees, the manufacturers actually sponsored the fair at the time.
Okay, so here we are up on the balcony area of the Dodge County Historical Society's first floor. And up here, the balcony is pretty much reserved for the Harold Hempel agate and rock collection, which you see here. This collection is a famous agate collection from the state of Wisconsin and from the surrounding region. And a lot of this collection used to be part of the University of Wisconsin geology department for many years. And we reacquired some portions of it over the years and were able to display it here. And many of this was on display at this Beaver Dam High School for many years as well, in some of their parts of their science department. The other aspect of the balcony up here is our rather large Native American collection. We have over 12,000 years of prehistoric history on display up here on the balcony, which includes many different types of spear points, arrowheads, stone grooved axes, and even more recent local Native American history, which highlights the Winnebago or the Ho-Chunk, the Potawatomi, and some of the earliest Native American tribal groups that were in this area in the 1830s and 1840s as Euro-Americans were coming into the county. One of the marquee parts of this exhibit is this hexagon in the center of the floor up here, which literally documents 12,000 years of Native American spear and arrowhead points that are diagnostic artifacts that archaeologists find in archaeological excavations and in plowed farm fields around the area. We also have a small exhibit on the wall over here that highlights the very important cultural tradition of the effigy mound burial complex, which is unique to the state of Wisconsin, the northern part of Illinois, and parts of the southeast, or northeastern, I should say, portions of Iowa. And over the last several years, myself and Bill Voigt put together this publication called The Indian Mounds of the Horicon Marsh and the Upper Rock River, which documents over 158 known mound sites in Dodge County. And this display here kind of highlights some of the locations of some of these mound sites distributed around the county, and also gives some information about not only what the effigy mounds are, or why they were built, and who built them, and documents this very unique prehistoric cultural tradition that we have here in Wisconsin. And Dodge County was a hotspot for mound builders because of the Horicon Marsh and the marsh of what was Beaver Dam Lake before it was dammed up in 1841. That natural resource area was important for Native Americans to get things that they needed to survive here in Dodge County. So we try to highlight that history, and really, one of the things we try to tell the school kids when they come for tours here is that Dodge County was really inhabited by First Nation peoples before Euro-Americans, and people that were here for thousands of years before the 1830s and 40s. So it's important that we recognize these people of the past and give a little bit of education about what those native cultures were and who those people are. And oftentimes we like to talk of native people of being something of the past, but in fact they're still with us today. The ancestors of the Native Americans that lived in this area for thousands of years are still with us here in Wisconsin, and it's an important part of learning about how we became a state as well. Also right here we did our best to try to mock up a little bit of a traditional Native American wigwam by using materials that we find naturally in the county here. Birch bark that they used for shingles and roofing, and these are actually cattail reeds that we got out of the Horicon Marsh, and tried to mock up a little wigwam of what a summer structure of what Native Americans would have lived in during the summer warmer months of the year. So there's a lot to see up here, a lot to take in, but if anybody comes up here, I think they'll learn quite a bit about the past. And one of the important people from our collection is this individual right here, Will Schneider. Will Schneider was a man that lived in Beaver Dam for his entire life from 1873 until 1937. And he collected numerous Native American artifacts around Beaver Dam and the Fox Lake area. So a large part of the bulk of our collection is from the William Schneider collection. And William Schneider, over the course of his life, was kind of a jack of all trades. He collected bird specimens, bug specimens, plants, Native American artifacts. He worked as a supervisor at Monarch Corporation in town here, and he also owned one of Beaver Dam's very first bicycle repair shops in town. And unfortunately, he was killed in a car accident at the age of 64 out on Highway 151. But he left an amazing legacy for us here at the Historical Society with many of the things that we acquired from his collections. And the DNR today even uses part of his plant and bug specimens that are in the Milwaukee Public Museum, Beloit College, and even at the University of Wisconsin to help to understand the environmental conditions of the past of Dodge County. So this part of this exhibit is dedicated to our guy, William Schneider here.
I'd like to talk about our one-room schoolhouse. Now, there were one-room schoolhouses all over the state of Wisconsin and actually all over the United States. So we wanted to commemorate those one-room schoolhouses by creating our own. And how this came about, as many of our exhibits do, is somebody will make a donation, and we'll take that donation and create an exhibit, and that's exactly what we did. So we took an office and made it into a one-room schoolhouse, complete with the bell, which was always used and used by every school. They always had a bell or bell tower, and the bell could be heard for miles around, and it would let people know that school was in session. So let's go in and see what we have. So when we put this together, one of the things we wanted to do is make it look as much as we possibly could like a schoolhouse of the time. So early 1900s, but probably 1800s as well. Beaver Dam was founded in 1841, but there were schoolhouses throughout Dodge County, starting right around that period as more and more people moved into the county. And schoolhouses were built for all the children that lived out in the outer areas, the outer parts of the county. Of course, we had schools here in Beaver Dam, but a one-room schoolhouse was very important because the families that lived around the area, they wanted education for their children, and the families would get together and actually build the schoolhouse. And from there, it was time then to hire a teacher, and all the students would gather in the house. So the interesting thing about a schoolhouse like this, and it was exactly the same as it would be first grade through 8th grade, all in the same room. So you can imagine that as having all these different age groups. The students weren't there all the time, and so people always wonder about that. Why was that the case? It's because the older children many times had to work in the farm fields in the spring and in the fall. So it might have been the boys didn't get as many days in school as the girls did. But the younger children would usually stay for the whole term. So the teachers was also hired by the people that lived in that particular area. They were supervised by the state of Wisconsin. There would be people that would come around and supervise those teachers. And there were also colleges set up for teachers in just about every single county. And so the teachers were trained. Many times they were anywhere between 16 to 20 years old, and they would go to school for 1 year or 2 year certificate. So they'd come to the school and have to do all the setting up. Many times they'd live with the families, and they were required to start the fire in the morning if it was winter time, keep the school clean. They had a lot of responsibilities. So let's come in and we'll check some things out. What they always had is the bigger desks were in the back and the smallest ones were in the front. So everybody could see and hear the teacher. Now these particular desks were donated by one of our benefactors, and he had the desks and he also had the chalkboards. And so these are actually slate chalkboards, and these are pretty old, and these actually came from a one-room schoolhouse between Beaver Dam and Columbus. So it's one of our most popular exhibits. In fact, some of the teachers bring their students, and we've had some that have dressed in period costumes from the early 1900s, late 1800s, and the teacher dressed the same. And they would conduct their class and act like they were back in time. So a one-room schoolhouse is a great picture of early education in Beaver Dam, and we wanted to provide that experience for students and for people. In fact, this is one of our most popular exhibits on our second floor. Here we are in a mock-up of a barn, an interior of our barn, and it's important because Dodge County was one of the most important farming counties in the entire state of Wisconsin. We started off with a number of different of products available, and they started with sheep farming was very popular. In fact, there were woolen mills in the city of Beaver Dam at one time. Wheat farming was really popular, and again there were places that would grind the grain into flour, and we had a number of flour mills right in the city of Beaver Dam. The major thing that really put Dodge County on the map, though, was milk production. The particular type of milk that was produced here had high butter fat, and so it was a milk that was sought after for making cheese. But one of the more interesting things is we have the Kraft Philadelphia cream cheese plant, and they located here in the early days just because of the quality of the milk that was available. So we have a large factory here that makes Philadelphia cream cheese. Most people think it's made in Philadelphia, but half of the cream cheese made in the United States is made right here in Beaver Dam. So when you get to our second floor, you'll see a lot of things dealing with agriculture because it was such an important part of the history of Dodge County.
Hi, this is our newly and almost finished military exhibit, and it highlights not just the people who have served our country, but also the many people who have supported them on the home front or through military aid societies. And this is going to open, like more officially open, in just a few weeks, and then we're excited to kind of show it to you. So come walk around and we'll see. Some things that you're going to notice is we're going to start off with our pre-Civil War and our Civil War cases. And here you're going to find lovely uniforms and different items to pique your interest, but we've also taken the time to try and highlight many of the citizens from Beaver Dam who have served and have stories to tell. As we come around this direction, this is about the Grand Army of the Republic, a very important advocacy club that grew and had just millions of members in the United States and especially in Beaver Dam. We've got Beaver Dam's own Burchard's Guard, which was a fun local guard that wore uniforms and it just impacted the community, and the community loved it. Here we've got Red Cross uniforms and some of the many veteran service organizations that arose to advocate for veterans in the community. If you keep coming, we actually have our highlight of the exhibit is going to be our World War I trench scene. Many men from Beaver Dam served in the Red Arrow Division, a very famous division, and we here have created a trench scene so you can imagine what it would have been like to serve in World War II. Come around this direction. We actually then also have a wonderful hall of uniforms. The Historical Society has many, many amazing, cool uniforms, and we wanted to begin to showcase some of them. And down below are my favorites, some of them really cool hats. Nobody has cooler hats than the military. And there's a little bit of something here for everybody. If you're a gun or weapons enthusiast, we have a lot of different military items to pique your interest, and this is the case I'm working on today, but it is the war in the home front. So I'll go ahead and close that. But come on over around. And we are trying to showcase the exhibit through time. So where we start with early Civil War, here we're coming around to the Korean War. We have the rise of the National Guard system and the Army Reserve system that is established and becomes a big part of Beaver Dam. And then we have the Vietnam War. And then it comes into more of the modern era where we have changes happening for service organizations. And then this section is the most under construction, but will be finished soon, will be more modern wars. And these are some of the uniforms. This was donated by Michelle Ovens, And this is by Richard Heff's family, and we do have some really wonderful pieces. So we hope that you'll come and give it a try. And even if you look at everything, there's going to be something here that you love.
We never really know what's going to come in the door of the Dodge County Historical Society. People are always calling us and saying they have a collection of something and they want to donate it. And we don't take everything, but we had to really think about these. And what I'm talking about is electric meters. Everybody has one on their house. That's how they measure how much electricity you're using. But today they're all digital. And they're actually read through the computer system, so they don't even have to come and read your meter. At one time they would actually have to come to your house and read the meter to determine how much electricity you used over a period of time. And that's what we have here. So we have quite the collection. So we have families that donate things all the time, and this one was donated by Cecil Kolstead. And his family donated all this. And initially we were like, well, I don't know what we could really do with it. But we got together and we thought, okay, let's make a display about when electricity came to Beaver Dam. So that's what this is. So we have meters that he collected over the years because he tested meters. That was his job. He worked for the power company in Beaver Dam, and he tested meters. And as he would replace meters as they got too old, he would donate them. Donate to his collection, actually. And so what happened then is we got his whole collection. So we have meters that, here's one from 1888. And so we have a lot of interesting meters. This is one of my favorite. This was a pay-per-use meter, which meant that you had to put a quarter in here, and then it gave you some electricity for a period of time. But people always say, well, why would you want to do that? I mean, wouldn't you just have a meter that ran all the time? Well, sometimes they use these on people that didn't pay their bill. So they would have to put a quarter in, and then they would click this little lever here, and they got electricity for a certain period of time. And farmers use them especially. If they ran behind, they had to milk their cows, so they would have to plug in a quarter, and they'd have enough power then to milk all the cows. And they may not have electricity for their house, but they definitely need it for the barn. So this display is then dedicated to the electric meter and how they actually measured electricity in the early days. Another one over here we have is just electricity in general. Vintage electrical devices, and it's kind of an interesting one because we have old electrical devices that people are always interested in, because today many times people have no clue when they turn on a switch what actually happens. So we talk a little bit about electricity. The other thing we have is water. Water was certainly important, and whenever we talk about Beaver Dam, we're always talking about water. We have the lake and the river, we have Swan Park with the springs there, and we have Spring Street. And there's a reason for it, because there are all kinds of springs in Beaver Dam, and they still are flowing today. It even affects our building. If the water table's high, sometimes we have water seeping up through our floor. And you talk to a lot of people that live on Spring Street, they all have water problems in their basements. But this is kind of an interesting one because it shows some early water pipe. The early water pipe in Beaver Dam was actually made out of wood. And here's an example of some water pipe. This isn't original, but we actually do have one piece of original water pipe from Beaver Dam made out of wood. And this came out of Center Street when they were replacing the Center Street Bridge. So an example of things that were needed: we needed power, we needed water, and so it shows some of the early devices that were used for even making the pipe. And you can see right down here we've got some devices that were used for actually drilling the holes through the pipe. And here's a picture of some gentlemen working, actually digging a trench. They didn't have heavy equipment to do it, so they had to actually hire people with picks and shovels to dig the trenches all over the city. All right, now we're in our basement area. So we have used the entire building. And with all the artifacts, we could actually use another building this size to display everything that we own. So we don't have everything out, but we have the things that we feel are pretty important in the history of Beaver Dam. So we call this our industrial area, also business area. We have a whole display right over here with artifacts from early businesses in the downtown area of Beaver Dam. Anything from the Hotel Rogers to individual businesses that were located on Front Street. What we have here is a display of antique tools. And sometimes people come and they say, oh, we don't want to look at those. They're, old tools. But what we want to emphasize is that these are tools that the average person would have had access to when they came to Beaver Dam and built their homes. So in 1841, when the first settlers came here, they actually walked from Fox Lake, was Thomas Mackey and his son-in-law came to this area, and they had to build their cabin. So that was one of the first things they had to do. But they had to use hand tools. An axe, of course, was very important to chop down the trees, but then they had a series of hand tools. Now when people came to the area, they brought things with them from wherever they lived. They may have come from Europe, straight here, or they may have come from out east. And there were a lot of settlers from that came to Beaver Dam that were from Ohio and Indiana and Pennsylvania. So when they came here, they didn't have all of these things, but they would have had some of them, and they would have traded and borrowed them from their neighbor. And so we always ask people, you know, what do you think was the most important tool on this whole wall? And they don't always pick this one, but this was it. So they needed a hammer. They needed a hammer to pound in nails. They needed the sharpened part on this, like an axe, to cut up the kindling for their fires that they had to make every single day for cooking, even in the summertime. They also used it for butchering and helping to prepare their food. So that was a very important tool. And we have quite the collection here that some of them are way over 100 years old. We're still in the basement, and we also wanted to highlight our friend, the Green Giant. Green Giant had a huge impact on Beaver Dam. It had a huge presence here at one time. We had a large processing plant for mostly beans and corn and peas, and it was a huge manufacturing area, canning all kinds of vegetables. And that was on the north side of Beaver Dam. In the summertime, it was a beehive of activity, hiring hundreds of people. Many college students worked there. It was a great place to work. They worked 12 hours a day, but they made good money and helped pay for their college education. But it was sad to see Green Giant leave after so many years here. Monarch had a wonderful presence in the city of Beaver Dam, and we many times talk fondly about it because it really was a huge part of the history of Beaver Dam. And Monarch Range, as many people refer to it, but it was the Monarch Malleable Company, Malleable Iron Range Company, and they produced stoves, but also many other things that people don't even think about, but hot water heaters, wood stoves, lots of different products for the consumer all over the United States. In fact, even today, some of these ranges that we see models of today are still being used across the country. Let's take a look at one of our older ones. This is one of their first models, and this you could burn just about anything in it, coal or wood or paper. And so this one you might see in movies. Many times this particular type of stove is featured in movies. A lot of these were purchased by people that were moving out west. They would take them all apart, and they were such a well-made product that they would last for a really long time. All right, what we're looking at is the Monarch factory, and it was big. So if you're familiar with Food Pride in that area, that's where it was located. So here we have this big industrial plant right in the middle of the city. We wouldn't want that today, but it employed up to 600 people, and it produced a lot of products. One of the major things that people liked about Monarch ranges is the enamel coating that was on the inside and the outside, and they were famous for that. In fact, other companies used the Monarch facilities to treat and prepare their products as well. So they did work for other companies. What we're looking at here is right along Spring Street, a 3-story building was part of it, and an office building in the middle, and there's a huge foundry also right along Spring Street. And a lot of people work there, and they did a lot of work for other companies as well, making parts. Monarch was really well known all over the United States for a quality product. These stoves were shipped across the country, and in fact we still get calls from people wanting to know, is there any way we can get a replacement part for our Monarch range? So people are still using them. In fact, that was one of the things that led to their demise, is they made such a good product and it was so heavy duty they never wore out. All right, so we got a chance to see some Monarch ranges, lots of varieties of stoves throughout the years, and they, like I said, made a wonderful product. One of the interesting things about it is people really like their Monarch ranges, but they like them for a couple of different reasons. For cooking, but also for heating. Now, when the electric and gas stoves started to being used by families, they missed the heat part. So you think about a electric stove or a gas stove, they provide a little bit of heat, but in the early days of Monarch ranges, they were also used to heat the downstairs area of the home. It's just because they were heated with wood, they were big, and they got pretty warm. So what happened is that over the years, when people started converting to gas and electric, people were like, well, it's not really keeping our kitchen and downstairs area very warm. So they demanded that they make a product that would help. So and this is one of them. And this is actually a new product that was developed by Monarch, and it was to provide heat for the kitchen. So it matched more modern stoves, gas and electric, but it provided a wood burning opportunity. So it fit right in, and it was sat right next to the new stove, but then it provided an opportunity to burn multi-fuel. You could burn papers and cardboard inside of it, and it looked nice next to the more modern stoves, but it provided an opportunity to heat the kitchen as well.
Welcome to the Dodge County Historical Society Archival Room. My name is Kurt Sampson, Curator of Museum at the Dodge County Historic Society. And in this room here inside the old William Street Library, our home base for the museum, is our archival room, which we maintain thousands of documents that are pertinent to the history of Dodge County and to the city of Beaver Dam. Things which include our photograph collection right over here on these shelves that you're scanning towards now. And in these archival boxes we have thousands of photographs from the history of the city of Beaver Dam, from the early Victorian era in the 1850s all the way up through current times of the new millennium. And we're always looking to add things to our archives. People come down here and they can do research when we're open Wednesdays through Saturday from 1 to 4, or by special appointment with me in the museum here. You can search cemetery records. We have family genealogy histories and lots of other information just about the history of the city and the county of Dodge County. So come on down and check it out, and we'll be happy to help you with whatever information we can give. Thank you.
Thanks for visiting the Dodge County Historical Society. I hope you enjoyed our little tour. We have so many other things to show you, and we'll be happy to do that anytime. We're open Wednesday through Saturday from 1 to 4. We're at 105 Park Avenue in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. Come and visit.